We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What is going on? It is not the outro yet. I accidentally pushed the wrong button, but I'm just excited because the Bears are going to be going. They're actually currently at London. They're going to be going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there's a lot that we have to break down. So as we always do, we'll break down the injuries. We'll talk a little bit about the opponent and kind of what to expect with this opponent, break down the offense, the defense, the special teams, and then who has the edge in our predictions. What is going on, everybody? Also see Shy Drax out there. Yeah, the All-22, I am curious about breaking it up or like doing certain things to, split it up a little bit. But if you haven't already, for those that are out there, make sure out on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. We do an All-22 review on Monday. But yeah, I'll think about like splitting it up. Sometimes it's hard to I usually whenever the data show goes out on Wednesday, it's usually because something pops up on Tuesday. I don't know what it is, but always something shows up on Tuesday. But today we'll be breaking down the Jags. So let's get right into it, shall we? Because we have a lot to go through today, and let's start talking about the injuries. Because we already knew that a couple of the injuries that were already out there. Jaquan Brisker will not be there. I believe he's not even in London. He had that concussion, so overall he's not going to be out there. But also, we have Tevin Jenkins not participating today. And quite frankly, with all the great stuff about Bill Murray, part of me wants to see Bill Murray for another game. And just because Tevin's been very, very up and down, especially when you see sometimes he's in the right position, sometimes he's not. I would love to see Bill Murray again. I don't think it's just me. I think it's a lot of us want to see him just, all right, what do you actually have with this person? Do I expect him to be a starter next year? No. But do I just want to see him as a potential backup and someone that could be just a good player to have on this team? That's what I want to see. So if Tevin is too banged up, he's been banged up for the past 2 weeks, have him rest a little bit for sure. Also, Shy Jack saying no pints for Jaquan. Yeah, maybe he's out there. If I was out there, I'd want to fly with the team. Even if they wouldn't let me, I would still be I'm buying a ticket. I'm going out there because going out to London, why not? Also, Skokes, my friend, what is good? Hope you're doing well. And let's see who else out there. So Mercedes Lewis, he's got the rest going on. Zach Pickens, again, the same groin injury. Yeah, he's not going to be there. Terrell Smith, not going to be playing either. But we see Kyler Gordon as a full participant, Tyreek Stevenson limited. But the big one that I actually want to call attention to is Jacob Martin. And some of you might be like, oh yeah, I forgot that we had Jacob Martin. That's the big thing, in my opinion, is that Jacob Martin he's someone that is able to practice with the team. We said this before, that now we kind of have this recovery window with Jacob Martin, with Larry Borum, with all these other players, that with Jacob Martin, he could potentially come back. And with Jacob Martin, remember, defensive end, the thing that I think that we have to look out for is then who's the odd man out on this team? Who's the person that they remove in order to make space for Jacob Martin? Because when you look at the team, you look at this defensive end spot and you go, okay, we might be able to actually, in order to shift some of these players around, in order to make a spot for a defensive end, might be a little bit more easier said than done for sure, because we have such a large number of defensive ends on this team. So actually, I just want to even pull this up. Now, when you look at it, and I just want to confirm that Daniel Hardy is in fact on the active roster, and not actually a practice squad player. So yeah, he is. So he is on the active roster, and that is someone that I'm kind of keeping an eye out for as someone that, might be the person that kind of the odd man out you stash on the practice squad, because otherwise there's still good old Dominique Robinson, which I feel the Bears just aren't ready to let go yet. But also, if you have Jacob Martin coming back, he's kind of that fourth defensive end. He's a solid fourth defensive end option in the NFL. If he has to be that third option, that's when you're like, okay, he's not that. But that's where it might not be bad bringing him back in. We still like the development of Austin Booker, even though he didn't have a great game last game. But still, I really like the idea of bringing in that extra depth. But another person, too, is that Larry Borum is another person that might be designated to here as a designated return as well, which I know a lot of people just probably sighed a little bit. But he is a good swing tackle, especially since Karan Amagaji is still getting used to the team with everything like that. So if Borum comes back, I'm more curious to see what do they do, because you saw what Bill Murray can do. So is it then Doug Kramer, who has been playing like your fullback? Is he the person that's goes down to the practice squad, or that's going to be something definitely to monitor for sure? Because you have him, you have Ryan Bates, other things like that could potentially come back onto the roster. But let's continue talking about the injuries, and let's talk about the injury report for the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Jacksonville Jaguars, the big one to look out for, Tyson Campbell, their cornerback, arguably their best corner on this team. He's a good, sound corner, and he was limited today. I believe he did not participate yesterday. So that's something to monitor, because him being limited leans more towards he might be back. They might try to play it a little bit soft. But I hope that he doesn't play against us, because we'll talk about how they play and why that's so key with Tyson Campbell a little bit later. But also, Broski, my friend, what is good? Seeing you out there in the comments. Hope you have been having a great week this week. But also, what we got out here, we got Devin Lloyd, we got Darnell Savage, just players that are a little bit limited. I don't think overall I still feel like they're probably going to end up playing, but also Travis Etienne a little banged up, limited today. But I think ultimately they were giving Tank Bigsby a couple more carries. He still looks like the better running back rather than Etienne just kind of reminds me a little bit of Swift, where not necessarily the true running back, but someone that can kind of receive out of the backfield and give you some different threats. But let's see. Let's see what else that we have out here. So let's talk about the opponent preview. But also right out there, Broski saying, let's not sleep on the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. Pretty T, has thrown for over 4,000 yards and over 65% completion the past 2 seasons. Jags have weapons on offense. Agreed. I totally agree with this. Because then also, Broski saying, Doug Kramer better not get any more stupid penalties on the goal line. And that's another thing, too, when we start talking about who would go after we have to start adding more people in. I mean, Kramer has not done too well. Like, all things considered, it's more of, we like the idea of having an offensive lineman on that line, at the goal line. But is Doug Kramer executing to perfection? No, definitely not. So, yeah, hopefully, like what you said, Broski, I'd like to see Karan Amagaji out there. The Bears fan that's like, you know what? We're going to do this. I'd love to see him get a rushing touchdown. Heck, put him in instead. Like that will be fun to watch. But also, Joe, my friend, what is good? Hope you're doing well. But let's talk a little bit about the opponent preview. So the opponent coming in, the Jacksonville Jaguars, are right now ranked DVOA's 27th team. Our Chicago Bears, 20th. But also when we look at what did they do this offseason, the big thing is in this draft, they draft Brian Thomas Jr., who was, I think I had 2 first-round grades on wide receivers, while the other ones were kind of on that next tier. But Brian Thomas Jr. and I think it was Ladd McConkey were the only ones at this one tier. Brian Thomas Jr. was their selection, 23rd overall, and he's been good. He's been a big deep ball threat, which what we expected, but also, just like what we saw on tape, has some good stuff on tape that he can play those shorter intermediate routes, even though he is known for being just a giant deep ball threat. Also, too, Mason Smith, the defensive tackle out of LSU, kind of a project type of a pick, and also Jerrion Jones, someone who is kind of projected more of like a slot type of corner from Florida State. But as we continue to go through all of these, the lineups and who they added, we'll switch over to what they did during the offseason. And during this offseason too, they got rid of Jamal Agnew, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones. So some of their wide receivers gone. What did they do? They brought in Gabe Davis and Devin Duvernay. And also they brought in the great Mac Jones. But also they got rid of outside linebackers Kaylavon Chason and Smoot, and brought in the great Trevis Gibson. But also when we keep on going through this, we have D'Angelo Blackson that they got rid of, Fatu Kasi, but they ended up keeping on bringing in more people like Eric Armstead, Ronald Darby, Trey Flowers, Terrell Edmonds, and Darnell Savage. Also, center Mitch Morse was also brought in. So they added in a decent amount of talent, to like what Broski was kind of mentioning, but ultimately have not been kind of living up to the expectations. It seems like there's a lot of expectations on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and people want the Jags to be good, but for some reason they just haven't like put everything together to be this really good team. So let's actually talk about the offensive preview for the Chicago Bears, because they're coming in, and I mentioned this yesterday during the data deep dive. This team, this defensive team for the Jaguars, their call is they run so much man coverage. That is what they do, and they do not stray away from it. Actually, ironically enough, last week they tried to play a little bit more zone coverage, but they were able to be picked apart by what was it, the Texans or the Colts? I'm trying to remember exactly who it was, but I did know that they played more zone coverage last week. Do I think they're going to do that this week? No. Why? Because believe it or not, we have a quarterback that struggles more in man-to-man coverage than zone coverage, and with complete opposite of Justin Fields, where Fields last year, Fields was always someone, whenever we heard man coverage, we're like, this is great. But currently, Caleb has struggled more against man coverage than zone coverage, because zone coverage, like from what we've been seeing on tape, he just kind of finds the hole, throws it, right? He's just like, okay, this is the hole, boom. While man coverage, a little bit more difficult for him, even though that they're not trying to disguise something, which I thought was kind of an interesting little nugget that, hey, normally rookie quarterbacks are better against man. So hopefully that kind of turns to next week or this week, so that we see a little bit better play versus man coverage. But also, this is one of the worst pass defenses that is out there. They are 32nd in points contributed by passing defense, which is they were negative 61 versus Carolina, who's the second worst, at negative 55. So pretty big disparity. This passing defense, not good. Their EPA per pass is actually the worst at plus 0.21. Also, they have allowed the 31st most passing yards at 39.3. This is the DVOA's 32nd ranked defense. So literally in every single stat, basically one of the worst defenses that you're going to go against. But yet again, they play more of a man system, and that's where these better quarterbacks are able to really just kind of pick this apart, because zone, they're going to try and confuse you. Man should actually be more simple for Caleb Williams. Also, our Bears offense ranked 26 according to DVOA, but also a couple other nuggets too. This defensive line does not generate a lot of pressure, or it's kind of right in the middle, around 20%. But also, they do not like to blitz. They have the third least amount of blitzes at 17%. So overall, what you can expect is that this defensive line, they're going to try to get home with the front four, with Eric Armstead not having as great of a year as he normally does, and also Roy Robertson Harris, that's right, still out there. It's kind of crazy. He's like 32 now, so makes you feel a little old, because you're like, man, I remember when he was an undrafted rookie for the Bears that had all this potential, but he's still kind of the same old, so nothing crazy. But it's on the outside with Josh Allen, or Josh Hines Allen now, who's ranked the ninth highest graded player by PFF, and also Walker, who is seemingly having a slightly better year. I wouldn't say resurgence, but Walker, their former first overall pick, a 67.7 grade overall. So really, the pressure is going to be coming on the outside. Armstead, though, is still a veteran, so I wouldn't just put it past him just because his grade is low. So they have the horses that they're going to try and just get at you with four rushes. But yet again, this is going to be the matchup to watch is going to be Josh Hines-Allen versus our Braxton Jones. Why? I think we all know why. Because when Braxton Jones isn't having a good game, you see Caleb just kind of struggle because obviously that left tackle spot is so key. And I really, really, really think it's going to come down to that because all the other spots with Pryor playing a little bit better, whether it's Jenkins or Murray, I think you feel better about this. And Coleman Shelton, to be honest with you, over the past couple weeks, he's been playing a little bit better. There's still, though, some of those snaps where you're just like, oh man, Shelton just gets absolutely wrecked. But hey, he's having better, just more consistent reps, which I'm more than fine with for sure. But the big thing that we got to talk about, because first off, we'll just kind of close the book on the passing game. You have to look at these corners. You have to look at the corners. You have to look at just how they're playing back there because, yet again, they play a lot of man coverage. And that's where if Campbell is able to play, that is a huge, huge thing for them. Because there's Monteric Brown at outside corner, who PFF actually really likes, the 25th highest graded corner. I kind of expect that to kind of regress back down a little bit. They have Darnell Savage primarily playing in the slot, even though that he's a safety. But also Andre Sisco is just an okay safety out there. And then Antonio Johnson, he's a second-year player out of Texas A&M. And also Ronald Darby, who is a little long in the tooth. He's about 31 years old, not having his best season. But yet again, they're trying to play and beat you with just pure man coverage. But also in the middle, you have a Devin Lloyd, who has been one of the better linebackers in this league quietly. He's currently ranked the 11th highest graded player from PFF at the linebacker position. But then the other player that usually plays out there for them is Ventrell Miller out of Florida, a 4th-round draft pick that they had. But really, attack them through the air. That's how you're going to win. Think about this very similarly to like how the Panthers were. Attack in the air, attack in the air, attack in the air. So if we flip over to the run defense, they actually have one of the better running defenses, or not one of the better, but just a pretty good run defense, where I think if you just look at the stats, they're 8th in most rushing yards per game, which, it's solid. Then 23rd in rushing EPA, but 7th in rush success rate. So what does that mean? They're actually a sneaky good run defense team. They're also 6th in yards per carry at 4.1 yards. So yet again, just because they're the Jags, I think that we're discounting them a lot. They don't have that bad of a run defense. And also 14th in expected points contributed by the rushing defense. Yet again, not as bad as I think a lot of people might be looking at this as. This is going to be a game that has to be won by Caleb Williams and this passing attack. That is the key to the game. Just air it out and understand that they're going to be playing a lot of man coverage. So what does that mean? Give it to your receivers that can win one-on-one in man coverage. You're talking about DJ Moore. I'm also looking at Keenan Allen, where I was looking at separation numbers, and we'll have this on the data deep dive because I found a really awesome source for this. Keenan Allen was one of the best in the entire NFL over this season on creating separation. I believe it was like at 65%, which is just outside of top 10. Give it to people like him. Throw the easy passes. If they're going to send a blitz, if they're going after you quick, find the hot route, find these good receivers that you do have that can win in that one-on-one coverage. So that's my big key to the game, is going to be passing it and having your receivers win one-on-one. The rest of the line, I feel good that we can at least hold up a little bit. Pryor going against Armstead, and then Wright going against Walker. I feel good about those matchups. The big thing is going to be Braxton Jones. To me, have somebody chip him, right? We don't see that enough. Have Cole Kmet just, push the player right before they get to Jones. Because what happens with that? They have less momentum to push Jones back. Try doing stuff like that because we really don't see that much on tape. and try doing that, because that's his biggest Achilles heel, is just going straight backwards. Going backwards is something he frequently does. So that are some of my keys to the game. But let's see what y'all are saying out there inside of the stream. I was actually not looking too much, but let's see. We got Broski saying, I'm done with Braxton Chicken Legs Jones. That is actually true. He does kind of have those chicken legs. But also Broski saying, looking for the Bears' schedule second half of the season. This is a game we have to win. It really is. It really, really is when we're seeing that. And then also we have Shy Drax saying, I think Eberflus will be on the hot seat if he doesn't win the easier games. This really is the big thing, is you do need to win these games. This is the easy part of the season, like we were talking about, where I think we were hoping that if you can come away with like one loss in the next 4 games, that's going to be the big thing, because we have like a bye week, then it's the Cardinals, and then we also, obviously, we're playing this game. This is an easier time of the schedule. This is where you show, okay, are we middle of the pack, or are we on the better side of those teams? Also, Ron, my friend, what is good? Hope you're doing well. And also Shy Drax saying, hit the 3-headed monster. And then, yeah, I like that. And Broski saying, throw downfield. This is a great game for Caleb to kind of continue taking steps, throwing it downfield for sure. So let's talk about matchups. So the matchup to watch, I already mentioned this. To me, Braxton Jones versus Hines Allen. This is an easy one. This is a simple one for me. That is going to be the matchup to watch, because now you're going against someone really, really good. And we saw what happened when he was going against Jared Verse. Yet again, Jared Verse wins more with pure power, which that's just a bad matchup naturally. Hines Allen is more of a speed rusher, but still, he's good. Like, he's good. Simply put, he's the best player on that defense, and you're going against someone that this is going to be big. Yet again, like I said, have a tight end chip. Do something like that. Help him out a little bit, or leave a running back a little bit. But I love the idea of a tight end chipping him, because that just gives them a little second. It ruins the momentum. Keep doing stuff like that, which we really haven't seen on tape. So that's what we got to do, Shane Waldron. Hope you're listening, because that, I think, could really, really help. But now, let's talk about who the X factor is in this. Because also, for those watching out on YouTube, who is your X factor? Because I see one out there, which Joe brought up, with Rome, getting Rome involved. And that could be it. Because with X factors, I don't want to go with Jones, because we already have Jones as someone that is the matchup, right? And then the offensive line, nothing too much. Part of me, if I'm thinking about this, part of me wants to go with Swift as the X factor, or Allen, or Dunze. Because the thing that we haven't seen is that with Swift, because with Swift, this is more of that challenge that we want to see. Can you continue to be consistent and continue to be someone that generates some yards for us? So that is where he could be the X factor. But I'm actually going to go with Keenan Allen, because Keenan Allen, to me, we have not seen that. We have not seen him get integrated. We traded for him, and we have not seen him out there. So I'm going to say he's the X factor. I want big games out of Odunze. I want Swift to be consistent. But Allen, this is where, like, especially in a man-heavy scheme, you should, as this guy who's catered as this route runner, this should be your game to really kind of shine and cook some people out there. So that's going to be my X factor is Keenan Allen. But let's see what's out there. Shy Drax saying, apparently rookie receivers take time. I don't know. I think that it might be a little bit of an excuse, like, with it, because receivers are actually one of the positions that actually takes the least amount of time for sure. But also too, yeah, I do agree. Caleb's improving. Rome's got to get involved. Broski's saying Kmet and Odunze need more targets. Yeah, I agree. I think that overall, when you see it, like, Kmet needs more targets. Like, Kmet seriously needs more targets. He's right now PFF's 6th highest graded tight end. Like, he's playing really well, and the tape backs it up too. He's getting open. I I like Kmet. I really, really like Kmet. The blocking, though, on tape, not the greatest, but still, he's a tight end, right? But Adunze cooks some people. You put him on some one-on-ones. I'd like to see a one-on-one with Adunze. Let me see how tall their corners are, just to see. So Brown is 6 foot. Darby's 5'11". Okay, so not the shortest out there, but you still got Rome Odunze, all 6'3" of them. But yeah, I think that Rome Odunze, I want to see him get more involved because, man, he's looking good. And I think a lot of people, when you see it kind of gets to that comparison mindset that a lot of people have with like Caleb and everyone else, where you see what Neighbors is doing in New York, and he's doing well. He's doing very, very well. But let's flip over to this defense where we got some stats. So the Bears defense is good, right? We all know the Bears defense is good, 7th ranked by DVOA, and this Jacksonville offense is ranked 16th. And like Broski was talking about, you can't sleep on this offense. This offense for Jacksonville is good. Like we said, they're right in the middle of the pack. But to me, the big thing is they can beat you bad. Like, that's kind of how this offense is they can just all of a sudden bring everything together and look really good. They're 15th in offensive yards at 327 yards per game, 22nd in EPA per play, 20th in passing yards, and also 24th in EPA per pass. But they're getting the run game going with their two-headed monster of ETN and Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby is somebody that has the highest elusive grade from PFF, and he's someone that I, quite frankly, am scared about. Why? Because the Bears have not been able to consistently stop the run as we've seen. And when we look at this offensive line that they're going against, this offensive line is no slouch. You're talking about Robinson as the left tackle, Ben Cleveland looking good at left guard, Mitch Morse at center, Sheriff at right guard. But really the only person that's been struggling is Anton Harrison, their right tackle. So that is going to be the big thing to kind of attack. Because, yet again, it's like on the interior, they're pretty darn good, but it's going to be that outside right tackle that you're going to have to be looking for. Because Cam Robinson, still a big guy that you can kind of run behind. And yeah, this team is doing really well. And also, I really like seeing Ezra Cleveland kind of get this new life at guard. So really, you shouldn't be expecting too much up the middle with Mitch Morse, Sheriff, and also Ben Cleveland. But really, it's going to be a defensive end game. That's how we're going to be able to generate pressure. That's how we're going to get to the quarterback, because Harrison, like we said, he's struggling. He's struggling for sure. So then also too, if we're talking about this passing attack, Trevor Lawrence, PFF's 18th highest graded quarterback. But when you look at the wide receivers, Brian Thomas Jr., like what we were talking about, how wide receivers hit the ground running. And you have Brian Thomas Jr. doing well, 16th highest graded wide receiver, And then when you look at the other rookie wide receivers, Marvin Harrison's looking good. Neighbors is looking good. Rome, like, we got to get him more involved. We simply do. Like, he's not asked to be the number one like these other guys, but he needs to be better. He needs to get more catches, get more targets so that we can see him just be used a little bit more. But then also Christian Kirk, just a solid veteran slot receiver, and Gabe Davis, someone who can take the top off of the defense, but since coming over, not been looking as good as they were hoping. So really, you got to be looking at Brian Thomas. You got to be looking at Christian Kirk as the weapons. And Evan Ingram, he's been banged up, so really hasn't looked like himself this year. He's got a 53.8 PFF grade, but yet again, he's been injured. Hasn't really kind of been playing with the same ability. But Thomas is going to be the person that, yet again, put Jalen on him. Let them beat you with Gabe Davis, because Jalen should be able to handle Thomas Jr. Yet again, you signed your lockdown corner for a reason. And then also, you kind of like the matchup a little bit with Kyler Gordon going against Christian Kirk. So I feel good about this pass defense, because also when we look at defensive ends, Sweat is going to be somebody that I'm looking out for, because Sweat has not been looking like Montez Sweat. He can redeem himself in this game, because Anton Harrison should be the person that we attack. And also if Jacob Martin comes back, keep the cycle of players just going so that we can try and get the quarterback down and just try to throw him off a little bit more. So let's see what y'all are saying out there and see that. Smash like, agreed. Thank y'all so much for hitting that like button. Share it out with your friends. Helps the show out tremendously. But also too, let's see. Broski saying fine with Caleb throwing 35 to 40 times. Agreed. That's the thing. Open it up for sure. Because what's going to happen if you lose a couple games, right? You obviously don't want his confidence shook, but it's like cork it, right? Like he's been having to lead us. He had to try to lead us like for the first half of the season or like, first 3 weeks anyways. So why not? But also too, Gabe Davis physically strong. Yeah, they have these big wide receivers like with Thomas and Gabe Davis, big and fast players on that outside. But also Shy Drax, Jag Lags. Yeah, the Jags though, this is the thing that we haven't mentioned too. The Jaguars, this is kind of, even though it's a Bears home game, this is the Jaguars home game. We have a lot of Bears fans that traveled out to London, but still the Jaguars, they are purposely making their footprints out inside of London. They're always doing overseas games. So they do actually have a fan base out there now because of all the times that they've gone out to London. Now that fan base has just slowly grown. But also another thing I want to talk about is how Elijah Hicks is going to be the starting strong safety rather than Mr. Biles, which I thought was a little interesting. Jonathan Owens has been a starting safety in the NFL. Thought they were going to go with him, especially since he's more in the box than others. Now we have Elijah Hicks, kind of the opposite. He's usually been more that free safety. And quite frankly, I don't know how I feel about that. I like Elijah Hicks when we're doing more cover two, but especially since this team has struggled in the run, Jonathan Owens is a better run defender than Elijah Hicks, or he's shown that he's a better run defender than Elijah Hicks. So that's the only thing. Like I kind of want to watch that a little bit just to see how does Hicks actually play. But what's nice is you do actually have backup. So if he is struggling, throw in Owens or anything like that. But I just thought it was very interesting that Hicks is getting the start. I thought if Byard were to go down, Hicks would get that. Owens is then your backup strong safety. So little curious right there for sure. But like I mentioned, I expect this defensive line, I don't expect too much out of Billings and Dexter up the middle. Everything that they do, that's just a plus. But I'm looking at Sweat. And actually, yeah, I won't go to the X factors quite yet. But I think that we match up pretty darn well when you're talking about just our wide receivers. But our corners versus their wideouts. The only other thing I want to mention, Stevenson has, like we've said, he's prone to up and down games. So hopefully Stevenson can have one of those up games this week. Also, let's see what the last little bit too is just the running game. Like we mentioned, Tank Bigsby, he's an animal that you have to deal with. And also same thing with Travis Etienne. They're going to try to run it on us. They're 11th in rushing yards at 126 per game and 12th in EPA per rush. So those numbers don't jump out, but they know that they can run the ball, especially when you see this. They definitely can run the ball on us. So that is going to be the thing that I just fear is we have to stop the run. We have to load the box, right? Especially if you have Hicks out there, try and load the box, try and stuff them because that is going to be key. And what I love about having Kevin Byard out there, you have this veteran that can protect the deep middle, the deep part of your zone. I love that, especially I think they're going to try and, hey, let's try to have Brian Thomas go deep. Let's try to have Gabe Davis beat them deep and then try to run it underneath. So it's going to be challenging for sure. So let's go into the X factors and matchups to watch for this defense. But also, Ron saying Bears win 45-10. I love that. I love that. Was that you that also said 45-10 last week? Because we're pretty darn close to that. I should have went back in the comments because I was like, I remember someone said 45-10. I don't know if it was Ron. I don't know if it was you, Joe, but it was like someone said that. And I was like, oh, man. But yeah, Broski, I agree. This is a chance for Hicks to prove his career. It really is. Because, like, he's a deep safety, and he's had ups and downs and other things like that. I like Hicks, so I want to see that. But yeah, Joe's saying, I think with the speedy BT2, we're going to need to go cover 2. I agree. I think that's what we're probably going to end up going. Like, I want to see more in the box, but I think ultimately we're going to go cover 2. And why not try to do like what the Minnesota Vikings do? You have that person down in the box, and then they just run back out, right? So that if it's a pass, you run back out, you have the person kind of press them a little bit, play more. We play a lot of cover 3. So that's another thing too. So yeah, Broski said 31-6 last week. Yeah, that's darn close, man. That's like pretty much there. And Bear Down, see Red, what is good, my friend? Bear Down to you too. Hope you're doing well. But let's talk about X factors and matchups to watch for, because my matchup to watch for, who to watch out for, is going to be, you probably guessed it, Montez Sweat versus Anton Harrison, their right tackle. That is the matchup. That is the biggest thing, because our best player versus arguably their worst player on their entire offense, he's got to win. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity. You're in London. We need our star to shine. We need him to do something. That is my big key matchup. And then when I flip over to X factors, my biggest X factor is it's actually not going to be the safeties. It's going to be Tyreek Stevenson, because like we were talking about, because at first I was going to do Montez Sweat as the X factor. I'm going Tyreek Stevenson, because if he doesn't have a good game, because you feel good about Jalen Johnson, but these receivers can get big yards on you. He has to hold his own, and we know him. He's either going to come away with an interception or he's going to get beat, right? That's kind of the type of player he's been this year and also last year. So he's my X factor for sure. That's going to be the big thing. Bear Down saying Sweat is due for a dominant game. I'm hoping. Taco Man, what's good? Saying our wide receivers should be eating this game. Agreed. Hoping Rome has a big game. Hoping he does for sure. So let's talk about everybody's favorite segment, the special teams review, which we've kind of had the same special teams review for the past couple weeks, where it's Carter, just don't mess up, show some burst, and then also just keep being perfect, Santos. You know, you can don't miss extra points, but I'd rather you miss an extra point than a field goal. So just keep it going, Santos. And also, as we always do, now we need to just make sure, Torrey Taylor, you got to have a good game, right? You got to have a good game. You got to show why you were that 4th round pick, because after having a phenomenal week when we were kind of calling him out, he went back down just to kind of normal punter status. You're going overseas. They're going to want to see the ball be punted well. So show them what you got, right? That's going to be my big thing with the special teams overall. But let's go with the who has the edge. Because who has the edge for the Chicago Bear for all this stuff? And also, I agree with Broski. Sweat is playing injured. That is the big thing. Like, the bye week is coming up. Thank God. Because, yeah, he really hasn't. Like, we said this during the data deep dive for everyone that, like, watched that. He wasn't really getting doubled, right? You didn't see that out of him. And I think sometimes we hope almost that he's getting treated like Khalil Mack was, right? Where Khalil Mack was constantly being doubled, constantly being tripled. But he's not. Like, he's just flat out not winning. So we got to see a good game out of him, and then get back to health. All right. Take the week off because we got the bye week, everything like that. This is a big game. Also, Darrell Taylor. You know, we haven't even talked about him being another person that comes in, maybe on passing downs to try and disrupt Harrison. But that's going to be the big thing. But let's go to who has the edge. And if we're talking about the Bears offense, and we're talking about Bears passing offense versus their passing defense, I'm going to go with the Bears passing attack, which is a great thing to say. And then we're also going with Bears with Bears run defense versus Bears running offense versus their run defense, I'm going to go with their run defense. And why? Because, yet again, every time I say that, I give the edge to the other defense, then Swift has a good game. So I want to see it. This is a better run defense. Can he do something? Can he average more than the magical 4 yards a carry? I'm still not 100% convinced, but show me. And the other thing too, our defense has the edge except for our run defense. So passing defense, that's us. Run defense, not so much. I had a little bug in my throat for those that are watching live. I'm like, oh boy, still getting over a little bit of a cold. And yeah, when you talk for 40 minutes straight, yeah, it does wonders for the vocal cords, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk about the predictions. So let me know your predictions down in the comments. How do you feel? What is your prediction? And also give me a big, bold prediction for what you think is going to happen. Because I also saw the line, right? We don't really do the betting thing anymore, but I saw the line kind of get pushed. Now I saw it at like 1.5. The Bears are 1.5 point favorites, going back from like 3 to all of a sudden 1.5. So a lot of money coming in on the Jags for sure. So I still feel like this is the Bears game. I still feel like we can get them going. And actually, you read my mind with this. Like, I really hope that we can get the passing game going. And I think we should be able to do this. I think if we lose, it's going to be a disappointing loss because they're going to be running the ball on us. And that means that we also probably didn't pass the ball well. That's ultimately why I think we would end up losing if Caleb has a bad game and our run defense just looks absolutely atrocious and we're just sitting there going, dang, right? So to me, oh man, I'm going to say that this is a high scoring affair. I'm going to go with, I was going to say 31. 31 jumped out. I'm going to say 31-24. Bears end up winning. So that's ultimately what I'm going to say. Bears end up winning. And yeah, I think so. I think that's what ultimately is going to end up happening. Taco Man saying 20-13. Yeah, I like that. And then 13-0 Bears. Yeah, I like that. Then Broski saying Bears win 27-17. Odunze has a couple of 40+ yard receptions. Oh, I'd love that. That would be so much fun to watch, man. Like, I'd love that. That's a bold prediction, and that's fun. I'm gonna go. So like I said, 31-24, and then I'm gonna say that as my bold prediction, I'm gonna say, I don't know if this is super bold, but Anton Harrison gives up 2 sacks. Right? Like, I think that's what's going to happen. Also, Caleb throws for 300 yards. I'm going to throw that in. Why not? So that's what I'm going to go for. Also, we got C-Red out there saying 28-17 Bears. Joe saying my bold prediction is Rome goes over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bears win 34-17. I want to see that, right? Like, come on, Rome. We're all rooting for Rome right now. Because, like, when he gets a catch, it's fun, and he just beats the guy. Yeah, I agree with all y'all out there. Let's go, Bears. I'm pumped about this. Hope you're enjoying this show as well. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. Also, for all those out in podcast land, rate 5 stars. It helps out the show tremendously. Share it out with friends. Tell the folks this weekend about Unbearable Sports if you want to. It helps out the show tremendously. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that